Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Journey Podcast. Today I got Dylan Love on. He is in the States, so we have some good connection. I figured we should get him on and talk about his journey. How's it going, Dylan?
Yeah, Mackenzie, awesome, but it's been an absolute incredible time here in the States, like always. Finished off with Nashville, and yeah, we get to come back here next year and do the same thing all over again.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sad that I missed it, man. This is the first one since, or the fourth one since 2007 that I've missed. But next year I'm
Uh,
not missing. I'm gonna be there.
yeah. So we actually just heard yesterday that it's actually coming back to Nashville, which we were all up against. We were thinking that might go head down to New Orleans side, but yeah, it's coming
Yeah,
back to the city of music.
I'm glad. It was supposed to be one more year Nashville, New Orleans, Indiana, New Orleans, but now it's 9 more years in Nashville, is what I've been told.
Just nine, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, no, that's
it's
exciting
good.
times, especially
It's
for us
good.
South Africans. I mean, to get out this side, it's very cool.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, Dylan. So let's kind of, like I said, this podcast is the journey. And I just kind of want to get everyone's journey, because I know you've done a lot of different things. You're on the other side of the pond. Obviously, you're here in the States right now, but you live in South Africa, and kind of introduce yourself and start at the beginning of kind of what got you into hunting. Did you hunt with your dad? How did you get into it? And then kind of go into your PhD career for a little bit, working for other people. So let's just start there.
Yeah, so I pretty much started my hunting journey on my 13th birthday, which was it was a day that I probably will never ever forget. So my family, we've always kind of been like outdoorsy people. We race motocross across the country. We actually flew to several different countries to do so. So we've always been outdoorsy people. My dad loved his fishing. But on my 13th birthday, I was afforded the opportunity on my uncle's farm to head out and hunt probably your more typical species to hunt as a first timer, the blessback. Um, but that moment, that sequence of events that happened that day, I would only kind of realized the impact it would have on my life to this day. So we get out there, and it was a moment I'll never be able to ever forget or never want to forget because from the time we from the stalk to putting on the gear to shooting the animal to having it harvested, doing the whole blooding thing, it was just an unbelievable journey for me. And since that day, I've always been captivated on this primal instinct that we have within inside us about hunting, and the more I delved into it, subsequently my father passed in 2005, so it was a memory that I got to hold on with him. So it became more a very sentimental aspect of my life, but it transgressed into this understanding that what do we as human beings have to hold on to make sure that these animals stick around, and that kind of got me into the journey that I took with my hunting adventures. So I was 13 at the time. That was back in 2003. Before I knew it, I was trying the whole professional sports side of things. I played a bit of rugby, um, but it never really satisfied me. So back in 2009, I came up with an injury. I slipped a lower disc in my back, and it afforded me the opportunity not only to reconnect with myself, but also just kind of give me some sort of a direction where I want to go in life. So I headed back to the farm where I shot my first blessback, and I decided there and then I wanted to understand a little bit more about the industry as a whole, but also this hunting. What benefits out of hunting, not only for us, not only for our health, but for the animals as well. So I became a professional hunter, and yeah, and that's pretty much where it all started. I got into contact with a lot of the older generation PHs, um, and I learned a lot from them. And it was very inspiring on how their perception on the industry at the time was had, and how us as a younger generation coming through, how we were, I want to say, misreading the whole point of the industry. But so I wanted to delve more into that, and that just really just ignited this weird passion that I had for hunting. Um, the weird passion I have for professional hunting, because it is. I mean, I needed to understand more on why professional hunters weren't successful and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, we'll get into that, I'm sure, as the podcast goes on. But yeah, so I became a professional hunter. I worked for my uncle at the time, doing a lot of freelance. I did a lot of freelance all over the show, all over the country. I acquired a lot of my other region licenses, so I was able to hunt out of my province. I did one or two hunts in North African areas, which was a lot of fun, Botswana and places like that. And then yeah, I decided back probably about 2 years ago that the freelance side of things, like I said, professional hunting, and I mean, we spoke about this on my podcast. It was very hard for us to watch what was going on in your guys' country and realizing the massive impact it had back home, and we had no control over that. So, when Trump came out of power, and the whole your guys' economy started turning, it had a massive effect on us back home. There weren't as many hunters coming out, and when they did come out, it wasn't the stuff that we were hunting, the big ticket items that you need once or twice a year just to get you through the season and stuff. So yeah, I decided 2 years ago that if I'm gonna make this thing work, and if I'm gonna have a sustainable income and a sustainable lifestyle going forward, I'm gonna have to do this on my own and become my own outfitter. Um, but again, like I said, it's been a weird obsession trying to figure out the cracks of the professional hunting side, but now also trying to delve into the cracks and the difficulties of what does it take to become a freelance outfitter. So yeah, just my journey getting to these points has taken me down a lot of dark roads and a lot of difficult times, but it's all for good cause, right? We all do this because we want the animals, we want conservation to benefit. So, having that as the whole goal and the end goal for me has always motivated me to do better. So, yeah, it's been an interesting road.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how many licensed PHs are there in South Africa?
Yes, Mackenzie, to be honest with you, it changes daily. So, again, I've delved into a lot of figures because I recently got divorced, right? So that was one of them. I was trying to figure out why the divorce rate, because it's over 80% of all professional hunters at this point are getting
Mm,
divorced. Why was the divorce rate so high? Why were the irregular incomes coming in? Why was it so different? Why was one game farm charging or paying these professional hunters a completely different rate to what another one is? Why are some of them, you know, including in diesel or gas or whatever it may be? So the figures constantly change, but what I can tell you, it's well over, I think it's 2,500 PHs out there that are active. So in South Africa, you've got to renew your license every 3 years, and you've got to have a certain amount of hunts on your license book so that you're able to renew it.
okay,
And
see, I didn't know
so
that.
that yeah, so you register, you become a professional hunter, but you've got to maintain it. And so there's more than 2,500 active professional hunters that are maintaining. I'm sure the number is well over 5,000 that actually inquired a license, but they're just not maintaining it because, like I said, the lifestyle it's just it's really nice. I kind of get this feeling that a lot of people have this perception on becoming a professional hunter for the lifestyle, and that it's a glorified lifestyle. But once you get into the nuts and bolts of it, it becomes a very, very difficult, sustainable lifestyle to have. And I did this, I did a podcast episode on this, actually breaking down the costings of each professional hunter and what we need to look out for. And the more I did it, the more interesting it became on the little things. And like I said, a lot of this is is out of our control, right? It's based on what foreign economies are doing and how well they're doing. So if if the United States oil price climbs, your guys' gas price climbs, and it makes it very difficult for us to try and make a living out of that because people don't have the excess money to come back over and spend it with us, you know.
Yeah, your guys' funds are basically essentially on upon other people's, economies, whether it's United States or UK or Mexico, because those are kind of like the three big, you know, I guess you can just consider North America as a whole between Canada, the U.S. and Mexico. That's one kind of big thing for you guys, and like the
Yeah.
UK area. That's a big market as well, Germany and stuff like that. So your guys' income is based upon whether or not other countries are doing good. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter if South Africa is doing that well. You guys want to make sure that other countries, because you're getting people in from the other countries. Obviously, you guys want your economy doing well because then your guys' um, dollar or rand is worth a lot
Mm.
more, and our dollars bring it over, and so then you make more money that way. But um, it's pretty interesting because, like you said, the whole thing of PH's divorce rates. You see a lot of that here in the United States with
Yeah.
guides and outfitters, and it's interesting that you bring that up because it's really like when you said, I started thinking, man, I know like a good handful of guys in the last year, 2 years that have, got divorced because of it. Because one, I mean, I look at it this way: it's like a rig welder because I've worked in the oil field. A rig welder is gone, and a rig welder is a guy that has a welding machine in the back of his truck. It's not like a guy on the oil rigs. That's not what I mean. But we call them rig welders because they have a truck with a welding machine. Those guys make a bunch of money. They're paid well, but they have to be gone a shit ton of time to make that good money. So they're never home. And essentially the same thing as a PH. To make the good money, you guys have to be consistently working all the time.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing, you know, because my initial goal when I started PH Journals, other than the other than the greeny attack I had on my family, I rather I created PH Journals to try and make people. I, I kind of believed, I always believed that there would be a way to make professional hunting a very successful and lucrative lifestyle and income that you can have. So the more I got into it and the more I tried to understand and try to do things differently, you know, I went down different roads. I mean, I tried the merchandise thing. I tried the online stores. I've tried investing in property. Uh, I've tried taking my tips and placing them elsewhere, but um, none of it has really, from being a professional hunter, none of it has actually really made a good sustainable living. And when you get into your 30s and you start settling down and start looking at family opportunities and stuff like that, the your partner might think initially it's a wonderful idea, but actually coming into that lifestyle, raising a kid, you know, 70% of the time by yourself, it's so difficult. And as much as we're trying our best out there to make you know the rands and cents of it, um, as a whole, as a family institute, it becomes difficult to maintain. So yeah, you know, I still do. I'm very optimistic about our industry, and I like staying that way because you know it keeps my hope, the little candle of hope lit inside me that you know maybe one day there is an opportunity where this whole thing breaks out and we can look back and say, okay, um, professional hunters now can make a decent amount of income, work, use it as a part-time income, and then still raise a family and maintain the good living conditions that are kind of needed to have a healthy household, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that, I mean, there is a way. You just gotta, there's a lot of avenues that you gotta take to be able to make that
Mhm.
sustainable. And I think you gotta build a big enough operation to where it kind of can run itself more or less. Or you have your home base, your families, that are quite often with you, maybe enjoying dinner with you at, camp, all that type of stuff to kind of keep you home a little bit more that way. Because yeah, like I said, I've witnessed even a lot of PHs the last few years going through divorces and stuff like that because they're gone so long. And it's interesting to think of that way. So when you started, and then the PH Journal, that's your podcast, that's your platform. that you have to where you share a bunch of, you talked about tops permits before. You've sat down with other operators, other PHs. You sat down with other people within the Africa hunting industry and had conversations, which is very cool. So if no one's ever listened to your stuff, go check it out. Um, you started that to kind of just try to figure out how to build a brand around it and build awareness. I was what my assumptions are. And then obviously I've seen you go through, like the merch thing. Dude, I've been doing merch since like 2011, and it's not with it's there's a very fine line margin of people that are succeeding at it in the outdoor industry. Most people are losing their asses at it when it comes down to it. Between having to do trade shows to try to sell it, for you it's even harder if you're trying to sell it to the U.S. and it comes to international shipping. That's a hard part, and so I can only imagine trying to split it that way. Um, and then so the PH Toolbox, that's something else that you've started. Is that still happening? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so PH Toolbox was basically it was a COVID project, and obviously with COVID we had a lot of time to think and rekindle a lot of things that we would always want to try. So I started it out, and it actually became a really cool half. So I was again I was trying to experiment with a lot of American models. For instance, Bass Pro, they've got this affiliate marketing deal where you can become an affiliate marketer of their products, and they would send you a commission, or you would earn certain commissions from those sort of sales. We don't have anything like that back in South Africa, and I thought,
Mm,
well, let me start this toolbox awareness out here, because number one, it can be a one-stop shop for every PH around the country to, if they need a set of shooting sticks, if they need a carry sail, or a winch for your vehicle, or something like that, they can log on to the PH toolbox um, and actually purchase it. But in doing so, also trying to resell that same product onto their friends who are going to be 80% other professional hunters, resell that item onto them, and that way earn a commission. So you get a certain percentage back. And I must say, for the first 2 years, it did exceptionally well. Um, but a lot of people in South Africa are trying this online store thing. So,
mm,
the price balance between the two, it's got to be delicate, right? So you got to be affordable, but you got to be affordable enough so that you can make money yourself, but so too can the guy reselling the product, because you got to pay
yeah,
commission out of it. So yeah, so there's I'm trying to better it constantly, and I'm sure there's going to be a point where I get and I'm going to hit the sweet spot, and I just need to kind of ride this wave of this difficult period out, because it is difficult out there. A lot of guys are trying a lot of different things. Guys are selling. I mean, where I was getting majority of my shooting sticks, just as an example, where I was getting majority of my shooting sticks, he's now selling online directly to the public. So he's kind of cutting the middleman out, which is, I mean, it's all good and well, but that model, the model I'm trying is kind of finding a difficult patch. But again, it boils down to me trying to figure out a way for professional hunters to make the sustainable lifestyle, because I solely believe, and the outfitter plays a huge part in the industry, but I solely believe that professional hunters are the front line of South Africa and Africa's conservation story, right? Because they're the ones out there making the crucial decisions on the animals. They're the ones out there making sure that the clients are having a good time, they're safe, they're well looked after, they're well, they've embraced the knowledge of our country, um, and we're utilizing the outfitter's property to do this all on. So I really feel that, PH Journals was designed for that, because we've actually we had lunch at just down the road here, and we were kind of figuring out, and we were chatting. Do I want to leave a legacy, or do I want to have fame? And it had nothing to do with fame. I always just wanted to leave something behind that people can recognize, that I try to we as professional hunters try to make a difference on, and and that's where I want to get to. And like I said, I'm very optimistic, and I do think that there is a possibility. we just got to find what it is, and again, that's the whole idea behind PH Journals, was to try and embrace as many of the guys as possible, having the guys from Splitting Image, having yourself on, just trying to get all the different corners of this nest that we've got, try and get everyone's perspective coming in, because that way not only are you bouncing great conversations between one another, but you're also bouncing good ideas, and somewhere along the line it's all going to line up, and it's going to be worthwhile. So I'm having so much fun doing it. I really am. Like I said, I've piled so much money into the merchandise and the stuff like that, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, PH Toolbox is still going. I'm at a point now, you'll see we've frozen a bit of the stuff on site, because we're trying to pick up into the next wave, and I'm hoping that it's up and running before the next season starts. So we'll only time can tell now.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think it's nice that you're being like kind of, putting it out there, because it's not easy trying to sell
Yeah,
hats, shirts, whatever it is, and I think that's a good idea with the toolbox, is allowing PHs specifically to be able to come in and have a affiliate code or whatever with you.
mm,
That way they can generate more revenue on the side of whether they're
mm,
getting tips, getting paid their daily wages, whatever it is, just an added thing that they can be doing without essentially having to go physically work for it. They can,
yeah,
share a post or whatever. It's a good way for them to make a little extra cash, which is awesome. I think it's a great idea, dude. Um,
thanks.
yeah, it's not easy. None of this shit's easy, and
No.
especially even being a freelance PH. Like I assume that there's got to be a lot of, you know, obviously you don't have like the overhead as far as like the ranch, a lot of the equipment or whatever, but you have the overhead of knowing whether or not you're gonna have a job next week, have a client 2 weeks from now. You might put all your eggs in one basket, and then all of a sudden that gets taken away from you, type of deal. And I'm sure you've had that situation come up. That's been my feeling between your merge between being a freelance PH and starting your own deal. And I'd like you to kind of cover on that, because I know it can't be easy being a freelance PH. Not, you might not have the responsibilities of having your own ranch and all that stuff, but you have the responsibility of where the hell am I going to get my next paycheck?
Yeah, well, and so so PHing, I do. I sympathize so much with my fellow PHs, because it's getting more and more difficult out there to do these sort of things. So, like I said, I did this podcast where I broke everything down. So you got to look at your vehicle costs. Things as small as that, and again, you want to try and I wanted to create a platform that people, if they were stuck in these certain holes, I've been there, I've done that, I've made the struggles. I've been very fortunate to go and have conversations with the older PHs and say, wait, hang on, how did you do it when you had an unexpected puncture and they couldn't repair the tire, you had to purchase a tire. You're taking a large chunk of your money out, of your savings or whatever it may be, to have this unexpected expense covered. So I've been very, very fortunate that I've had the resources to go back to and chat to these people about these different situations. And again, that's all I've been trying to do, is try and help people out of it. But it's a challenge. It's a constant challenge. I mean, with the fluctuation of our fuel price alone, if the game farmers aren't reimbursing you for the fuel that you are used on the hunt, it's a struggle. It's a huge struggle for professional hunters just to make it through. And then, you look at the different scenarios that are out there. For instance, myself, my tracker is probably, if not one of the most important people I have in my team, because he does everything to the best of his ability and at 100%, and he does it to a point where I know that I can leave him right now, and the stuff will be done to you know the best quality you can possibly, whether it's skinning capes, cleaning your vehicle, preparing it for the next day. So that comes at a price, because I've got to pay him now a salary, because I don't want him job hopping around from the next outfitter or the next professional hunter to another one. So I've got to keep him happy. I've got to constantly pay him salary is on my financial books as such, because you want to look after him, because I know that the next PH he goes to, if he's got the funds backing him, or if the outfitter's got the funds backing him, he's gonna snap him up. So these are the constant struggles that we as professional hunters look at. But again, it's we the professional hunters are needed, and they needed to perform probably one of the most important jobs. And I hope there's a day that will come where this gets easier. So yeah, if you unfortunately, if you look at a lot of successful people out there, and especially the more successful professional hunters, they break down their costing to the small. I mean, they even break it down to the point where if they've got to buy new soles for their boots, or I mean, the one professional hunter I spoke to, he's an older gentleman. He doesn't do it anymore, but he broke it down to his sunglasses, his sunglass case. I mean, stuff like that. And because you've got to watch the rands and cents that come in, because every little cent counts towards the end goal, And you know, I see a lot of these young professional hunters. They just keep chasing the days, and maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about the quality of outfitter, number one, and number two, it's about having that delicate balance. So yeah, if there's any advice I could leave behind, and that's just you've got to know what your monthly expenses are, right down to the last drop. As as far as a shoelace in your boot. So yeah.
Yeah, which I think's, good that you're covering stuff like this and that you've covered it before because just within the last 3 years, I've really noticed a lot of younger guys start trying to start their own deal, whether it's bow hunting only. There's like three or four of them now that are starting up that are young, or other guys that have worked for somebody breaking off on their own. It's great that everyone wants to do their own thing, but I think a lot of them don't understand, you know, they had that job, and I don't know if they had access to the books or their current, you know, overseeing PH told them about all the ins and outs of it because you see a lot of these guys and they struggle. You see them struggling.
Hmm.
And you see it right now, especially during show season. And this is kind of a good way to talk about this because you see it during show season because all you see is show special, show special, show special, deal here. When these dates are open, it's like they're almost too hungry for it, and that's why like I have a Facebook page that I created that you can't post any of those show specials. You can't post any like the minute you post that you get. I give you three warnings. I take them down three times, send you a message, and if you do it the fourth time, I kick you off of it because I think it's so tacky because there's some big Facebook pages out there that have 15, 20,000 members. You get on there and all it is a list. Every time is like show special, discounted packages. It's like so tacky. And then me and another guy that joined my group this week, he messaged me like, dude, thanks for having a group like this because every time you get on another group, it's all these people so hungry. And it's like, do you really want to book with them? And I think it's a race to the bottom. And I'm going to have a podcast come out about this whole subject on how I see it with show specials and stuff. But you know, there's so many of these young guys that are out there, and I think there's some young guys that are going to be great, and that can be awesome if they just learn what you're talking about, making sure they figure out, okay, I got to take care of my tractors, I got to take care of the landowners. If I don't have, full access or don't own property, I got to take care of the ones I'm leasing from. And so I think it's a perfect deal that you're doing is trying to explain to these younger guys because there's a lot of younger guys doing it. And like we've talked about, it's damn near everyone that has a Jack Russell and a freaking Land Cruiser has a PH license. All you need is a Jack Russell
Yeah.
and a Bucky and you're good to go. But uh, and so it's like, and there's a lot of fly by night guys. And the problem is I think these guys that are fly by night and the guy's not doing it right. And I talk about this with a lot of people all the time. Is those guys somehow end up having a bigger voice than the guys like and other great outfitters that are doing it the correct way. You know, it's because that the wrong way is kind of more impactful, and they see, these young kids still see, oh, this guy's got a brand new Land Cruiser, two brand new Jack Russells, got all these properties, but he's not taking care of his clients or his tractors.
Yeah, and the biggest issue I see with the younger generation coming through at the moment is, and I get it bombarded with messages from youngsters coming through, and I want to
I
be a
bet.
young professional hunter, and where do I start? How do I get hunts? And then they get a couple of hunts, and then they start like posting all these kill shot videos on Instagram and stuff, which is great, but I kind of feel like everyone is taking their eye off the ball. So my first question to them will always be is, for what is the number one reason you want to become a professional hunter? And if in that first line of answering there's not a word of conservation put in there, I don't entertain that question any longer. Because the thing is that you're not going to become, especially as a South African hunter or as a South African professional hunter, you're not going to become a millionaire from your Facebook page. You're not going to become a massive Jim Shockey celebrity from your Instagram page. You're not going to be a Craig Boddington. We don't have the facilities. We don't have the lucrative deals that the Americans have. I mean, I'm sitting on a podcast that's got more than 2.2 million downloads, and it doesn't bring in a single cent, not a single cent for me. Do I get a lot of reimbursements through some wonderful sponsorship deals, but there's 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 no reason for you to try and chase a glorified perspective that's put out there, um, because we don't have the facilities to do it. Do I want the facilities there? Of course I do, because I think it will be great for the industry, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And although I would like it to, it's just not going to happen. And again, it leads into that very delicate balance. Are you going to do this for conservation, or are you doing it as a promoter? Because somewhere along the line, if you're doing it as a promoter, there's a very, very high possibility you're going to take your eye off the ball, and and conservation is gonna come second best. And I started my own safari company for one intention, and that was just to try and make a good living. I don't intend um, being the biggest, best out there, because I still want to praise people that are doing the good job for the industry. I mean, I want to praise the John X's. I want to praise the Jason Stones. I want to give these guys credit because they deserve it. Because conservation's at their forefront. I mean, if you, I know you follow them well, but John X has just gone through a counting system where they've analyzed all their properties and understand how many animals they've got. That's conservation. That's people putting their name at the forefront of conservation. I mean, Warren Rippon from Buffalo Kloof Safaris. I mean, what he has done in the Eastern Cape with the Big Five. I mean, he's got black rhino there. It's magnificent. It is absolutely magnificent, and I want to praise these people. So there's two issues I feel that we've got in our industry at the moment, and going back to the show special deal, is that the competition is very, very evil at the moment. And it's evil in a sense that there's a lot of outfitters out there. And without mentioning names, there's a lot of outfitters out there that are chasing the dollar signs, and they've taken their eye off the ball. Their clients aren't having the experiences that they need. The clients aren't fully having a proper traditional South African hunt, and it's the quickest person to 100 animals, right? The one farm I hunted on for many, many years, and I was not aware of what was going on there until I started permanently working there. There were records for the guy who shot the animal off the truck the quickest, right? So when you look at that, that is an unsustainable model. And
Yeah.
it's guys that have just constantly taken the eye off the ball. And that's, for any young hunter out there, that is not what you want to do. So getting back to the show special side of things, those are probably your red flags. Is when people, I mean, last year I didn't do. I think I did a buffalo and a sable special for Black Friday, but I kind of look back at it now and I say, but hang on, oh, it's not a sustainable model because and I did only limit it to two because I only have two big buffalo bulls to hunt for this year. I don't have anything more because they're all soft boss. They're not past 8 years old. They, the deal. So I've got to look at my own model, and when I look back at it and see everyone throwing out these Black Friday deals and stuff like that, how sustainable is it? How many hunters are you going to get buying a sable at $2,000, and by the 20th client that comes through that gate and he's bought your Black Friday special, he's not shooting a conservation bull. He's shooting a young orange bull that's probably 3, 4 years old, and he thinks he's getting one whack of a deal. But meanwhile, at the end of all of it, it's conservation that suffers. And I really like. I mean, when we spoke about it on the podcast, and you said that if the guys are just because they're cheaper, it doesn't always mean you're getting the better deal. And that's something I've always enjoyed when people have that perspective because it means they've sussed out the situation and they realized what's going on. And it's those guys that dodge those deals and actually go for the better animal that actually have the more enjoyable experience. And they get a lot more out of their hunt than a sable for $2,000. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
it's
Well, so, kind of sticking on that topic for just a second, like, there's two ways to look at it. Okay, the guy that's charging, because I know there's a couple guys that go to shows and they book 500 clients, and everyone's like, man, they book so many people. It's like, well, how much do they, their average safari is 5 grand. So they have to take twice as many people, if not 3 times as many people as the normal outfitter doing it. But then the problem is they have such low prices that everyone migrates to them, and then they don't realize because this is I love how you brought the sable up. The Cape Buffalo and sable are the two number one species you see guys getting screwed on the most on social media. It's okay. I mean, I'm just going to talk about South Africa because obviously some places like Mozambique have areas don't have great genetics for sables. You're not shooting long ones, but you still see the massive secondary growth. They're old bulls, but in South Africa, you see guys whacking orange young sable bulls. There's no secondary growth, and then you see guys shooting Cape Buffalo that their bosses are soft, clear the hell up. It's just like, dude, like I had I've seen it last week. There was I posted on this Cape Buffalo hunting page and I said, let's see some buffalo. And I seen a bunch of great buffalo, but there was like one guy and he posted like 8 bulls and they all were like 5, 6 year old bulls. Like prime, maybe 6, 7 prime breeder bulls, like still super soft. Big bulls, but super soft, and it's just like, man, like this guy has no idea what he's paying for. What I mean? He doesn't see the European when it's boiled all the way back and there's no boss left. He sees it when it's been rebuilt, and all this. It's just like it's just crazy. But I love how you brought the sable because those are the two number one animals that people get screwed on the most.
and the thing. I mean, again, it's probably not my proudest moment, but I've been a part of all of that, right? So I've made those mistakes. I mean, in 2021, as recent as 2021, I hunted 222 days, and I shot 58 buffalo in one single season, and that's not sustainable from any point of view. That's not sustainable. That's not a sustainable model, and that's when I realized, you know what, I'm like, hang on here, guys. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to, my name needs to be remembered for conservation. And if I'm a part of this, it's wonderful from a paycheck point of view, right? But from a conservation, and again, this is why I say is that I'm not making any excuses, but you kind of hit panic stations, right? You had COVID, so you were locked down. You had house repayments, vehicle repayments, all this sort of stuff. You had to put freaking dog food in your dog's bowl, at the end. And we were struggling to do that. So come 2021, when the season booms, you try and cash in, and I took my eye off the ball. And I'm embarrassed about it. I really am. But it is what it is. And it happened. And I've learned from these mistakes. And that's what I try and say is that I know, and I've seen it firsthand when these guys put out these specials, okay? They're great deals. They really are great deals. But you have to stand and stop and ask yourself, where where are the shortcuts being taken? Who's losing out on these deals? Because somebody has to, right? So
Well,
yeah, so I
yeah.
mean, is it? I mean, I know outfitters that aren't allowed on their neighbor's property because their neighbors were being screwed out of the kudus that they were shooting because they realized they were being screwed over from the pricing and all this sort of stuff. So somewhere along the line, this chain, somebody's losing out, and more often than not, it's not the outfitter. It ends up being your trackers, your professional hunters, the other farmers that are supplying these animals. Um, so somewhere along the line, somebody's losing out. So when you see a deal that's almost too good to be true, you got to stop and ask yourself, hang on, where's it getting lost here? And obviously when guys put out a lot of specials, I mean, when we donate to certain society, I mean, I've just donated a hand to the Elk Society, right? So you donate it because you want to give back to a good cause, number one. But you also hope that the person purchasing this, he will upgrade a couple of animals to lessen the cost, the cost impact on that package. But when you're selling a package at a show that's got no limit to it, that everyone can walk into that, if everyone crosses that booth today and decides they want a sable at 2 grand and everyone buys one, there's a lot more costing that needs to be made up that way than one package at one donation hunt. So yeah, I've said it to a lot of people. I said, and I get a couple of requests online when guys say, listen, what is the deal, how is this outfitter, or whatever it may be, and I'll shoot it straight. If an outfit is doing dirt in the industry, I'm happy to throw out names, but also at the same time, I'll always ask them. I say, that's a great price, but you have to ask yourself where the shortcuts being taken, and that's the big thing for me, is that I always wanted to understand who's going to be losing out of the same.
Yeah, no, I agree. And same like on my end, when I get people asking me, they're like, I've never been to South Africa. I say, okay, here's a few outfitters I would recommend, or here's a few species. And then at the end of the day, they don't take my advice. And there's one outfitter that I know, and I've met the guy. He's super nice to me. Like I've talked to him a bunch, but I know what he does. He does this freaking printing press model where he brings in hundreds of clients, and I know they're not getting the experience that they need. And so, they'll be like, "Oh, I decided to book with this guy because it was super affordable." And I'm just like, "Okay, whatever." It
Yeah.
makes it like actually it pisses me off that I go through the time and like it doesn't make me mad that they're not using the people I'm. It's just that I try to explain to them the certain parts of it, and they go to like, dude, if I tell them to go to somebody and they go to someone else that's just as good, I could care less.
Mm.
But when they go from a good outfitter to a shady one or a shit outfitter,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's what bugs me. You know what I mean? The most
Yeah.
because my whole thing is I want like Africa is my favorite place. I love it. Like I talked to you on your podcast, it's like the greatest place. I want all the good outfitters to win. I want everyone to be fully booked. And I wish like I don't like wishing bad on people, but I wish some of these bad guys would you know I don't want them to go completely broke, but I like them to lose some business, and then maybe they would rethink things and understand why.
Mm.
And then they could probably maybe flip the switch and turn their business around and do it properly. And if they don't do it properly, just go broke type of deal. But I like, I think a lot of younger pages need to hear this type of stuff because it's in America here. It's the fast buck or the long term buck. You'd rather make the long term buck instead of the quick buck
Mm.
but a
Mm.
lot of people want the quick buck because it pays for things now. And I really appreciate you getting on and saying, "Hey, yeah, I made that mistake." Yada yada yada. I mean, dude, COVID screwed a lot of things up for people. Everyone was trying to make
Yeah.
quick buck here and there. Um, so I like how you got on here and explained that because then there's gonna be some other young PH starting out that's gonna be like, "Okay, I don't want to make the same mistakes." You know,
Mm.
the best thing is younger guys can learn from your mistakes, and that's kind of what I want people to do. Is because I've made a ton of mistakes. I've bought companies that I've had people stealing from me, all sorts of shit. So it's good to have like this conversation because that's kind of what I created this podcast for. Instead of just telling the same success story over and over, I want to hear the shit that you had to deal with to make it
Yeah.
happen and keep going. Because I don't think people realize. Obviously, like you didn't have a booth at SCI because it's a pain in the ass, and there's so many outfitters, and we've talked about this before, but I don't think they understand. Like, look at Buffalo Kloof, John X. Look at who else? I'm trying to think. There's a couple other guys that have been in the game for a long time, and they have these big booths. Well, they go to 4 or 5. Some guys go to 7, 8 trade shows. That's a
Mm,
lot of money. I know what it
mm,
costs to do these trade shows. And with people, if there's not clients pitching up, coming talking to them, if they're not taking bookings, I know how disheartening it can be and how, because it's a big financial thing for you guys to come over here. And especially there's a lot of guys that are actually, their kids are all at home. They're coming over here marketing for 2 months. They don't see their family for 2 months. It's hard that way. Everyone thinks everyone's just partying, which it's part of it. You know what I mean? But you're here. That's what you're here to mingle. But
yeah.
they don't see the cost aspect of it. I mean, I don't think people really appreciate how the outfitters are coming and doing, this type of stuff. And I don't think the people appreciate the organizations that are putting these on as much because there's a lot of money both ways that need to be, analyzed. And so I think that's great that, you're kind of like, hey guys, starting out, just look at this aspect of things. Um, and so going into 2024, you're about done with your United States run here. What starts? When's your season start? What's kind of the game plan for 2024 for you?
Yeah, so again, I've got a pretty different approach to the whole outfitting game. I'm freelancing outfitter, so I've got to strategically now when I get back from the shows, I've got to sit down and see what I've got booked. So I start at the end of March, and then I will look at my bookings accordingly, and then try and place everyone where they're going to have the best experience for the package that they after, right? So um, I've got a guy coming out in May that wants to just do bow hunting, so it's going to be a different setup to what I have for the guys coming in June, and I'm going to do a bit of rifle hunting. So yeah, so when I get back now, I'll reassess, make a few phone calls because that's also been the fun part about learning as a freelance outfitter. I didn't realize how many properties were out there that guys just had these properties for enjoyment and tax write-off purposes. They didn't want to go through the effort that you've just mentioned by flying out to the States and setting up booths, setting up safari companies. They just want guys, to come and see all their animals, have a good time. And so I've been very, very fortunate with the connections I've made and the facilities I've been afforded. So yeah, it's a bit of a, like I said, it's a bit of an interesting road. And again, I don't ever want to compete with anyone out there. I just want to do my own thing. Make sure that the guys that are coming and hunting with me are having a great time, experiencing South Africa, and you know, ultimately giving back to conservation and making this circle work. Because yeah, it's like I said, and if you don't mind touching back on what you said earlier with the shows, is that what worries me a little bit with the outfitters we've got that are doing dirt in the industry is that it's kind of getting to a point now where it's very comfortable for them, and it's almost going to become like a necessity for the industry to survive because without these guys piling these clients through the door, um, and shooting the volume of animals that there are, there's going to be no more breeders. So then there's a whole nother wave of things that we lose. So it's a difficult situation, but one that you have to trust the intuitions of the guys that are out there, the guys that are doing well, like the Buffalo Kloofs, John X, and you really it. I say as a young professional hunter looking into the industry, you you need to pick out the guys that are going to motivate you, and it's those organizations, that really put conservation at the forefront, that motivate me to go forward and be a better person, be a better professional hunter, because they are they're doing very special things for our industry, and it's it's very inspiring.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I like I, like there's so much Africa to hunt, and but I think South Africa, maybe a little bit, but I think South Africa is like the starting point for a lot of people, especially nowadays. Like for me, the first thing I saw was like Zimbabwe and all this stuff, because there wasn't a lot of social media when I first started, so it was like you would watch like tracks across Africa, and they would hunt Zimbabwe a bunch. But like South Africa for most people is the first stepping stone into hunting Africa, and I think it's like the most important part of the Africa thing is South Africa. and people having a good time in South Africa experiencing, because then they'll branch out eventually if they truly love it. And so I think it's a great, thing that you're saying. You got to kind of weigh the line there. What are you going to lose when you get rid of some of these bad guys, which is sad to say, but it's the same thing here, like with anything here in the United States, politics, anything. It's, you got to weigh your options a little. And so, I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying all that and diving into that a little bit, because I think it's just important for everyone to know that South Africa and is a very key part of hunting in Africa, period. It's like the stepping stone for everybody.
Yeah, and again, I mean, that's why I asked you on my podcast, like, does traveling take out of it? And I've always said, like, once you get to that point, I mean, we've had this conversation where there's so many different species, and you get to travel and see different things, and hopefully, like you say, you build these relationships with people in the industry, with clients. I mean, I don't like calling them clients; I rather call them friends that come out and hunt with you, and hopefully, bigger things will grow from that relationship. You have the opportunity to hunt in Limpopo, Northern Cape, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, all those places. So yeah, like you say, it's a great stepping stone, and I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of people to come out and have some sort of taste of Africa, because I'm sure once Africa's in your blood, it's very difficult to get out of it. So,
Yeah. I mean,
so
as you
yeah,
can see behind me.
so it's a lot of fun, and that's my thing, is that I kind of came up with this little saying with my outfitting company, is that I, I don't have the facilities to offer you quantity, but I can definitely give you a quality time, and that's what I hope a lot of people out there in the industry are striving for, because once you have that true experience in South Africa, that true experience of Africa, it's very difficult to not come back again and again and again. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. Cool, man. So, I mean, I appreciate taking the time. I know you probably got other stuff to do today. So let's finish this one off by asking you one question and kind of say, what are you, if someone wants to come to you for their first safari, because you're primarily Eastern Cape, and that's a great place to start out. What are you offering? What are you like, what is your specialty? Like, what are the four animals that you say, okay, come with me and I'll make sure you have the experience to do so?
so first one is, I've fallen in love with chasing the tiny 10. So it's I did a hunt on, it's actually on my YouTube channel, where I backpacked up into the Sneeuwberg Mountains. And not only is the Sneeuwberg rich in history for the South African side of things, it's such a wonderful experience, for the klipspringer, and even if you get lucky on a fall rhubarc. So I would say, once again, um, I don't have the the facilities to offer quantity, but I can definitely give you a good time chasing a bushbuck, which is my favorite animal, klipspringer, blue darker, and I probably would say the East Cape grey ghost, the kudu.
Perfect. Sweet. I mean, that's a pretty good list right there. I love them all. So yeah, that's a great way. How do people find you on Instagram? How do they find your podcast, website? Kind of list out where they can find you at.
Cool. So I've the Instagram one's a bit of a delicate one. It's just at PH Journals, PH underscore journals. There are two pages I created too, so that people didn't steal my name. So the other one, I mean, you can more than welcome to like and share that one. And then on Facebook, it's just PH Journals, and then YouTube, it's the PH Journals. And then my podcast, we're on all main streaming platforms, Spotify. We're back on YouTube now, so we've got a couple of videos. But we're on Spotify, on Apple iTunes Store, Google Play, wherever it may be, and that's the PH Journals as well podcast. So yeah, I want, if you don't mind taking this opportunity, thanking everyone that on that side of the pond for supporting me, backing me, asking a lot of questions, getting involved. It's been an absolute wonderful journey, and I'm having so much fun doing it.
Yeah, man. I want to say, thank you for jumping on. Thank you for having me on your podcast. That was fun. Like I said, I could talk Africa for 6, 7 hours. So I really appreciate it, dude. Let's do one again mid-season, kind of catch up,
Yeah,
see how things are going. And like I said, if anyone, wants to go, like, and you've said it, you offer quality. You might not shoot 40 different animals with Dylan, but you're going to have a fun experience. So if anyone's on here
yeah,
that wants to just get their feet wet, give Dylan a shout, hit him up on Instagram, and go hunt with Dylan and have a great time. Because I know me and you are going to do a safari here soon. So let's make it happen. Just
there we
hell,
go.
even if I just come over there and do freaking whatever, I just want to come hang out with you and
That
have
would be
fun. So,
awesome. There we go.
but I appreciate it, Dylan. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. I'll let you get back to your time in Nashville, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Mackenzie. I had an absolute wonderful time. So have a good one, bud.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Cheers.